Yo, what is up guys? We're back for another video. It's been an incredibly long amount of time, but I feel like I do this intro every goddamn time. It's been an incredibly amount of time. Never mind. Let's just get started without further ado. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about every Premier League club's most important player, in my opinion. Please don't kill me. There are going to be a few ones that people are going to kill me for, and I already know which ones. Let's go. Now, Arsenal, this is pretty self-explanatory to be quite honest. I think that for Arsenal, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is going to be central to anything good they do this season. And while people are already jumping on the hype train that he isn't scoring enough and he scored one goal in a whole month and that was also a penalty, I do think people kind of forget what a lethal finisher he is, and he is top 3 Premier League strikers not right now, but like when you're comparing with Kane and Aguero, he's up there with them in the current Premier League squads. So I do think that he will get his form back. All good players have a blip in form, and he just needs 1 or 2 goals from open play to start flowing again, and then all his confidence will be back. And to come to the defense of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Arsenal's midfield and defense are not defense. They're the defense is good. Don't get me wrong, but their midfield is so defensive. You're playing Xhaka, Partey, and El Neni. That's the most defensive combination I've ever seen in my entire life. You have to play Ceballos and Partey. They have to be 2 guaranteed starters. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. Otherwise, I'm going to be here for a good 2 days. Aston Villa. Wow, Aston Villa have been crazy good this season, to be honest. I mean, who actually expected Aston Villa to be in the top half of the Premier League after the window they had? It wasn't, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a bad window, but it did still feel like their defense was still going to be exposed. And while at times they have looked exposed, no one can deny how good they've been going forward, especially. They've absolutely destroyed Liverpool. They breezed past Arsenal last week. They beat Leicester, who are top of the league, need I remind you. And while they've had a disappointing 3-0 thumping to Leeds, with Bamford scoring the hat-trick, barring that and 1 or 2 more games, they've looked really good. And for them, I think Jack Grealish is going to be integral to any success they have, because he's the heart of that team. And right now, he's playing to the best football, in my opinion, of his whole career. And if he can keep this up, the sky's the limit for Aston Villa, especially with the amount of injuries Liverpool having. Man City looking like they're still stuck in a bit of a transitional phase. Chelsea looking good, but still questions to be asked. And Leicester, Everton also looking good, but again, questions to be asked. I do think Aston Villa, if they can keep consistency, sky's the limit. And Jack Grealish will be if they're gonna do anything, Jack Grealish will and has to be at the center of it. Now Brighton, this is a short one just because Brighton don't exactly have a world-class star player, and I think Leandro Trossard, Neil Maupay, and Louis Dunk are the 3 ones that stand out. And for me, I've chosen Neil Maupay just because of his 7 goals that he got last season, which kept Brighton in the Premier League. And I think another 7 to 10 goal season will just about keep Brighton in the Premier League. However, do keep an eye on him. He was dropped from the Tottenham game because of having an inflated ego. And that is something that I would keep an eye on. Hopefully that's just a one-off, because take the ego out, he is a talented player and he will be integral if Brighton want to stay in the Premier League. Because right now, things are looking quite flat for Graham Potter's men. Although they're playing good football, they aren't scoring enough. That's why I do think Neil Maupay will be integral for them. Especially now that Glenn Murray, their 300-year-old legend, is gone from the club. Now Burnley, again, one of the other clubs that don't exactly have a star player. Burnley, I think Nick Pope or Dwight McNeil. I don't think anybody else comes very close. It may be James Tarkowski, but I think he gets slightly overrated in my opinion. Now, I do think that Burnley will be fine this season. While they've had a rocky start, I think under Sean Dyche, I just don't see them in a relegation battle. And right now their defense is looking leaky, so they just need to hope that none of the goals they've conceded, or not many of the goals they've conceded, have been down to Pope. But they need Pope to get back to his last season best, where he was a clean sheet off winning the Golden Glove, which is pretty good. So I do think if Burnley want to get another mid-table finish, Pope will be essential for them. Now Chelsea, one of the hardest ones because of the amount of players they've signed. But based off, at least at the time of recording, with Ziyech is hitting form, so it is a fair argument. But I do think it's still a little premature to have him being Chelsea's best player. Havertz, he's starting to get to grips with Premier League, but again, not good enough yet. Mendy, he's a very good player, but I don't think he will be Chelsea's most important player. I think for me, it has to be Timo Werner. And it's obvious, but his movement, his agility, his presence of mind, it's crazy. And for me, the standout goal was against Southampton. While Chelsea dropped points, highlighting their defensive fragilities, to his movement for the first goal, he did a body feint and shook off the Southampton defender like he wasn't even there and scored a pretty good finish, scored a pretty good goal, and he's starting to hit top form. And Chelsea will need Timo Werner, especially if they want to go far and if they want to compete for the Premier League and compete in the Champions League. And I predict a 15 to 20 goal season for Timo, which is really good considering how bad Chelsea's number 9s have been. Now, Crystal Palace. Now, this is one of the controversial ones because I know that people are going to say, oh, why aren't you choosing Wilfried Zaha? Now, don't get me wrong. Zaha is a good player. And yes, he started this season like a house on fire. But I do think there's a different motive to Zaha starting the season. I do think he kind of hoped that he would get a transfer away. Because, let's be realistic, he's 28. He needs to move away if he wants to get Champions League football, which is, I think, his standard. But after that display against Leeds, I do think Eze is starting to find his form. And that free kick was something special. I was watching that game, and I saw that free kick go in, and I was like, what a goal. And he got an assist for the first goal. So if Eze can start finding form, maybe even if Zaha leaves, I don't think Palace would be as worried as they would have been if Eze was not here. And yeah. Everton, now this is another controversial one. It's either Dominic Calvert-Lewin, James Rodriguez, or in my opinion, Richarlison. Now, I think James edges Richarlison for me. I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin is there just yet. And I'll explain in a minute. But before that, I want to talk about James. Wow, how good has James Rodriguez been since he came to the Premier League? He was supposed to be a failure. He was supposed to be an expensive signing who couldn't cut it in the Premier League. But let's be real, he's been nothing short of breathtaking, and he's been amazing. And from a neutral's perspective, it is so nice to watch James play with a smile on his face, especially after the last 3 to 4 years he's had being undervalued by Real Madrid, being undervalued by Bayern for a bit. But the reason that I think James will be integral is because if you look closely in Everton's last 3 games, their last 3 defeats, which were Man United, Southampton, Newcastle, respectively. Now, I do think that those games are a prime example of if Calvert-Lewin isn't involved, if he isn't getting the goals, he isn't contributing otherwise to the team. With James, his switches from side to side are so essential to get Everton moving up. And against Southampton, they weren't poor, but I do think the red card to Lucas Digne changed the game while they were chasing the game at 2-0 down. Around the 60th minute, that red card, which is the most retarded decision I've ever seen in my life, changed the whole game for them. But against Newcastle, without James, they look so flat in midfield. Dominic Calvert-Lewin barely did anything apart from that last-minute goal against Newcastle, against them, but which at the end didn't have anything. And against Man United, while they weren't up to their high standards, they weren't as poor as they were against Newcastle. And James was really helpful. Those switches were good, and I do think that he will be essential for them. Fulham, I'm not wasting time on this. It's Fulham, it's Mitrovic. Who actually gives a shit? Leeds, Calvin Phillips. I mean, what more can I say about Leeds? They've looked really good. While they had that little bit of a pummeling to Palace and Leicester, I do think that Leeds will be fine, and Calvin Phillips will be at the heart of that Leeds team. And his versatility is breathtaking, and he's a brilliant player, and he's very underrated, in my opinion. Now, Leicester City. Now, who the hell actually expected Leicester City to be top of the league? The way they ended last season, they crumbled a Champions League position when they were third and second for most of the season. It was quite pathetic, to be honest. And I'm not the only one, but I did think that Brendan Rodgers would be sacked, especially after losing Chilwell. Getting into the Europa League means they had an extra set of games, but they've looked as good again. And I don't know what's happened, but maybe I don't know. It's hard to understand how a team looks so bad a month and a half ago, or 2 months before a month before the season restarted, and now they're top of the Premier League. And I'm not saying Leicester are going to win the Premier League. Don't get me wrong. I do think they will go far, but I don't think they'll win the Premier League. But who else but Jamie Vardy? I mean, yes, he scored a lot of penalties, but he's still Leicester City's best player. And people say Maddison, not yet, in my opinion. People can say Schmeichel, no. Evans, no. It has to be Jamie Vardy. And if Leicester want to actually have a chance in the Europa League and actually compete for the Premier League, Jamie Vardy has to stay fit, because without him, we saw against Villa how toothless that attack looks with Iheanacho up front. And I do think that Leicester will be fine, and they will be really, really good this season, and they will be dangerous to watch. Dangerous to play, sorry. But yeah. Now let's talk about Liverpool, shall we? I mean Liverpool, they're an amazing team, but it's hard to choose. But now with the amount of injuries they've had, I do think Mohamed Salah will be more important than ever, and I do see him having a similar season to his debut campaign, where he broke the Premier League record, and he was just immense for Liverpool. And to be to be quite honest, he's looked amazing this season, and he will be important again. Mane is a tough shout, but it's a close call. Sorry, but I don't think he's up to the level of Salah. And Van Dijk's injury just means that nobody else will come close. A player to watch out for, though, just for Liverpool, because it struck my mind, would be Diego Jota, who started the season like a man on fire, and he's scoring every game he's playing in. He's scoring in effectively every game he's playing in, and I do think he will be important now for Liverpool to give them a bit more depth in that forward line. I mean, it had to be. It just had to be Manchester City next, didn't it? And it just has to be Kevin De Bruyne. Because if Manchester City find consistency, I do think they will win the Premier League. Especially with the number of Liverpool injuries Liverpool have had. I don't think Liverpool can go beyond like January, February competing in everything. Until then, I do think they'll compete. But after a certain point, they will be flat. And I think next week, when both teams return, they both have incredibly hard games. Liverpool are playing Leicester City, who are top of the Premier League, and Manchester City are playing Spurs. But enough about the games. Let's talk about Kevin De Bruyne, shall we? I mean, what more can I say? He's the best player in the Premier League right now. There's no doubt about it. With Van Dijk's injury, it just makes it easier to say he is. Yes, Son, Kane, they all come close. But Kevin De Bruyne is the... Now with David Silva gone, if Manchester City are going to win anything this season, he has to be at the heart of it. Especially now with Aguero having more injury problems than ever, he will be the leader in that squad. Manchester United. Now I hate Manchester United. I hate them more than any club in the Premier League. I hate Manchester United. But I can't have anything but respect for Bruno Fernandes. He is a world-class player. Yes, his attitude is a little bit frustrating and a little bit pissing off, but take out the attitude, he is Manchester United's best player, and he is going to be the reason Manchester United finish anywhere they finish this season. And if people that call him just a penalty merchant, yeah, they seriously don't know how important he is to that team. He not just in terms of what he does on the pitch, but off it. He's a leader, and he's something Man United have lacked for a very, very long time. And I think that if Ole can get a bit of money, Manchester United will be a force to reckon with again, and Bruno will be at the heart of that team to reckon with again. Newcastle. I mean, this is a tough one. But I love Alan Saint-Maxime, to be honest. He's one of the most fun players to watch, also known as Gucci. And I love watching Alan Saint-Maxime play. He's so fun. He's a breath of fresh air, especially for Geordies. And while his goals and assist output isn't the best, it's actually relatively dreadful. I do think that he's a very good player. And if he's able to find just a little bit of end product, similar to Adama Traore, this man will be unplayable on his day. And there's no doubt about that. Now, Sheffield United, I mean, this is a tough one, because you could choose anyone for Sheffield United and you wouldn't be wrong of such. So, I mean, to be honest, I can't say anybody. While I've put a photo of a Sheffield United player, I can't say anyone because I don't know who is going to be their best player because I don't watch a lot of Sheffield United. I think they're the club that I watch the least in the Premier League. I watch almost every other club but them because I'm not a fan of Sheffield United. So I guess we just have to move on from this one. Now Southampton, Danny Ings, but Che Adams is good as a notable mention just for this one. Southampton, I mean, if the reason they're doing well, by the way, is Danny Ings. His goals, assists, his presence it's integral for Southampton. Now with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg gone from the midfield, Danny Ings' goals just keep getting more important and more important. But hopefully for him, Che Adams can help provide something else, like he has in the last couple of games. But like I said, Danny Ings, he's an immense player, and it's really good to see him play at an elite level, especially after the injuries he had at Liverpool, and almost he was discarded like a piece of trash, to be quite honest. Now, Tottenham Hotspur. Now, this is incredibly hard. It's between Kane and Son, to be honest. For me, I think Kane edges it, and I'll tell you why. I love Son. Son is an amazing player, and he's one of the best wingers in the Premier League. However, Kane, if this was last season and they were both playing like they were, I would have chosen Son. But now, Kane has added assists to his game, and Kane has added more clinicality to already an incredibly clinical game. So it's really hard to look past Harry Kane because take out the goals, he still has assists. And that's something that most number 10s don't have. Look at Bobby Firmino. He doesn't have the goals, but he has the playmaking presence. But Kane has both goals, assists, playmaker, and like against West Brom, Tottenham are showing that they don't have to play well to win games, and that is the winner mentality. And if they want to play well, we saw against Man United when they absolutely destroyed Man United at Old Trafford 6-1. When they want to play well, Tottenham look like a force to be reckoned with. West Brom, Matthias Pereira. I mean, it's not very hard. He's injured right now, but he's the only hope West Brom have, to be quite honest. And they really, really need him to be fully fit because they don't have anybody else to give them a glimmer of hope. But again, West Brom are not staying up. If West Brom stay up, I will literally record myself jumping off my balcony. They're not staying off. Please don't stay up. I don't want to jump off. West Ham. Now, this is hard because West Ham have started relatively well, not going to lie. And Antonio, Souček are good shots. But I do think Fabianski will be really important, and here's why. Like we saw last season, when Fabianski was injured and they had Roberto, who's not a player anymore, but their backup goalie, West Ham looked really, really shaky. And even though they could score, you always knew if you went up the other end, you had a 95% chance of scoring. But with Fabianski there, that chance drops by a substantial amount. And I do think that if West Ham want to have maybe a mid-table or even a Europa League finish, which doesn't look out of sight right now, Fabianski has to stay injury-free. Fabianski has to stay injury-free. And Wolverhampton Wanderers, also known as Wolves. I mean, it's Raul Jimenez. Now with Diego Jota gone, it just makes it more easy to choose Jimenez. And it's an obvious, but it's a choice that I think we have to make. Because how good is Raul Jimenez? I mean, how underrated is this guy? He failed at Benfica, and people questioned if he could do it. If he couldn't do it in the Portuguese league, who said he could do it in the Premier League? But boy, has he been good. And Wolves fans must be breathing a sigh of relief knowing that he didn't go to Manchester United or Juventus, who he has just come out and said that he was linked to them. There was contact, but there was no agreement made. So I think that now with Jota gone, Jimenez's goals, assists, and presence will be very, very important for them. And yeah, so that's the end. And this was a lot of fun making, to be honest. I enjoyed making this video, and hopefully I can keep making them. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and peace.